Hi everyone, and welcome to your beginner's Pilates class. So this is suitable for a pure beginner or someone who wants to keep the work quite easy, working up to a level 1. We'll get straight into it. We'll warm ourselves up a little bit. If you want to circle the feet, bend those knees a little, and we'll get started. We're going to do a couple of deep breaths just to warm up those lungs first of all. Let's bend the knees, sweep the arms up, breathe in and breathe out. Same again. Big breath in and breathe out. We'll add a twist on after this next breath in. So breathe in. Now twist to the right. Wrap your hands around your hips and look over your shoulder. Allow your crown to twist and grow up towards the sky. Coming back to the front. Same to the other side. Big breath in. And breathe out, twist. Look over your shoulder, corkscrew up towards the ceiling. Lovely, coming back to the front. We'll do a little bit of balance. I'd like you to plug one foot into the floor. Lengthen up through the leg, core muscles switched on, eyes staring forwards. Just float the other leg in the air. If you know you're a touch on the wobbly side, keep the toes close to the floor for security. Use your arms out to the side, or even support that leg if you feel you need to. So we're just going to stir through the foot and the ankle. See if you can kick that foot back and forth from the knee. Keep the eyes staring forwards, core muscles switched on. Whoops. And circle through that leg into the hip joint if you find that's possible. It can be quite tricky, as you've just found. And melt down. Give that standing leg a little shake. Let's do the other side then. Maybe I'm a bit more stable on that side today. Lengthen up, switch on, focus those eyes, and float the leg. Keep the hips as level as you can. Circle through the foot. Kicking the foot back and forth. Circling with that leg into the hip joint a couple of times in each direction. Okay, and melt down, give the leg a little shake. So we've set up the brain, we've set up the lungs. Let's set the rest of the body up. We need to find our hip distance apart. Best way to do that is to bring both feet together. Then kick the heels out, bring the toes in line, and that's your perfect hip distance apart. And that's really quite important. We need to retrain the brain to use our hip distance, to keep the hips, knees and ankles in line. It's also quite important when we do some of the lying moves to be able to put the feet in the right place, a bit like rail tracks if you like. So we've found our hip distance. Try not to lock the knees. Keep those knees slightly soft. Your pelvis needs to be in neutral. So find your pubic bone, find your hip bones, and bring them in line. If I turn to the side, it might be easier. Sometimes we relate our pelvis to a bucket of water. So if you tilt your bucket of water forwards, you'll tip the water out the front. If you tilt it backwards, you'll tip the water out the back. You need to be in the centre. Okay? As if it was filled up with water and you weren't spilling a drop. Once again, pubic bone, hip bones level with each other as you look down, a natural triangle or an arrow pointing down to the floor. Then those core muscles need to switch on, thumbs on the bottom edge of the rib cage, fingers down towards your hips. We'll take a breath in, and you might feel your thumbs and your ribs lift up as the lungs fill up. As you breathe out, try and bring thumbs and fingers a little closer together. Find some tension just in that gap there. And again, breathe in and breathe out. Find that tension as you draw ribs and hips a little closer together. Maintain that tension, release the arms. Practice this as much as you need to get used to it. So we're going to keep that tension in the core muscles, and also you can zip up with the pelvic floor slightly. Nothing too major, just drawing up slightly. Imagine you're going to the toilet and you're just trying to slow down or stop mid-flow. And then we'll breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you do so, try and keep the core muscles switched on and the pelvic floor zipped up, taking the air into the chest. Keep the shoulders nice and broad, the chin tucked under. It's quite a lot to think about, especially for a beginner, so don't worry, I will give you prompts and reminders all the way through the class. So let's breathe. Just take a couple of breaths to connect brain and body together. Okay, opening the eyes. Give yourself a little bit of a wiggle. We're going to do some roll downs. I'm going to go onto a side so you can see from the side, but you don't have to. You can stay facing the front for the moment. We're going to do some roll downs. This is where we stretch the spine. So core muscles are switched on, heels underneath the hips. Breathe in at the top. Exhale, chin to chest, drop the arms and shoulders forwards. Keep the tummy scooped. I want you to imagine there's a fence there and you want to retrieve something from the other side of the fence. So the tummy is scooped up and you're reaching over. You're not forcing it, you're hanging. Fingers towards the floor. If the back of the legs feel too tight, please soften those knees. That'll just take the pressure away from those muscles. Let's restack. I want you to start at the base of the spine though. Keep your arms relaxed, keep the tummy scooped up and slowly rebuild the spine one vertebrae at a time. Working through the rib cage, allowing the shoulders to drop down into place and the head comes up last. Breathe in at the top. Exhale, same again, drop the chin to the chest, drop the arms and shoulders forwards. Let those hands fall and become heavy, dropping down towards the floor. Whether you reach or not really doesn't matter. You're just folding over as far as your body will allow, and by all means bend those knees again if the back of the knees feel too tight. We'll restack, smooth and slow. Imagine your tummy muscles are pushing the spine up from inside the body. You're going to change it slightly now and take it to the side. Take the left arm over to the right hand side. Let the right arm drop. Now turn, taking it down slowly but surely. Tummy muscles scooped up all of the time. Bring yourself to the center. Look between your legs. Now restack in the center. Core muscles are zipped up. Slowly rebuild. Go through the spine mentally, one vertebrae at a time. Straight into the other side. Right arm over left. Tilt, turn, lower down, stay in control. Bring yourself to the center. Look between the legs. Slowly restack in the center. We're going to do each side one more time. Trying to fully loosen up all the way around the waist. Turn, use your core muscles for that stretch. Come to the center, look between the legs, chin on the chest, keep the tummy scooped up, keep breathing. Last time. And we're going to restack back up. Chin on your chest, remember. Scoop the tummy muscles up and rebuild. Okay. I'd like to take yourself to the back of your mat now. We're going to do another roll down. This is going to bring us down onto the floor to do a few press-ups. So core muscles are switched on. Breathe in at the top. Exhale, chin to chest, drop the arms and shoulders forwards like we did earlier. Keep the tummy scooped up. Imagine yourself folding over that fence. And this time we're going to take the hands and knees down to the floor. The hands come forward, level with the shoulders but wider than your mat. Tummy in, back is nice and straight. Nose towards the floor. And press back up. Make sure your chest doesn't sag towards the floor. You need to keep your back straight, bottom tucked under. So this is the easier level. If you want a slightly more difficult level, take the hands and the body weight forwards. Lengthening out now. Much more weight is going into those arms and hands. But again, the chest is not sagging, neither is the tummy. The thighs don't even touch the floor, it's just the nose. Okay, and last one. Push your bottom back to your heels. Stretch the arms in front. Or if you prefer,
Take those hands down by your feet, let your forehead drop to the floor, and allow the shoulders to drop open. Okay, we're going to lie on our backs now and do what's called the basic lift. Grab yourself a cushion if you want one, just to put underneath your head. The reason why you might need a cushion is that with Pilates we aim to keep the back of the neck nice and long. So if you're able to tuck your chin under and keep that neck long, then you don't necessarily need a cushion. But if you find yourself with your chin poking up constantly, grab yourself a cushion that will lift the head up suitably and look after the back of the neck. Now, do you remember your hip distance apart? Try again if you need to, kicking the heels up, bring the toes in line. We must have feet in line with our hips, the same as our knees. And our knees for this one must be bent at a right angle. So make that right angle and then pop the foot on the floor accordingly. Your feet have got to go back to that spot. Those knees have got to stay at a right angle. Pelvis is in neutral once again, so if you need to tilt, then pubic bone, hip bones level with each other. Natural curve to your lower back, of course. Tummy muscles are switched on. Lift up at the pelvic floor. Fingers on your hip bones for now, please. Let's breathe in to prepare. As you breathe out, gently float one foot off the floor. Hover the knee above the hip. The leg is still at a right angle. Breathe in, melt the foot back to the starting point. Breathe out, pick the other foot up and hover the knee. Breathe in to go down and breathe out to float. Keep repeating that, walking the legs back and forth. Remember, we mustn't bend the knee and drop the foot close to the bottom. It's got to go back to that same spot every single time. As you walk the legs back and forth, the back is not allowed to move. It stays in neutral. The tummy muscles stay switched on, but sense what's happening underneath your fingers now. Your pelvis, we're trying to centre it and keep it still. So as you swap from one foot to the other, sense whether your pelvis tilts or not. As you put one foot down and lift the other, you might find your pelvis suddenly tilts to the side. We're trying to eliminate that, so keep the feet nice and light on the floor, tighten underneath the belly button a little bit more and maintain that neutral spine with your back. Do not allow your back to lift and arch as you lighten the feet. For some that can be a little bit of a mental battle. Stay with this if you find that that is a challenge. For those that have completely gotten what I've said and is totally centered, pelvis stays perfectly still and smooth as you switch the feet over, you can go to the two-leg level. But if you're still learning this one, please stay with the single level until you've got that core connection. So those for the double level, you breathe out to float one leg, breathe in, prepare. As you breathe out, you can flatten a little into the floor with your back and then float the other leg if you need to. Then you breathe in to melt the first leg and the second leg down. Breathe out to float the second leg first this time. Breathe in, prepare. Flatten as you breathe out if you need to, and then float. And breathe in and go down and down. Eventually you're aiming to stay in neutral, but for some that's just too much. So breathe out to float, breathe in, prepare. Breathe out to float, but keep it subtle and smooth. Do not allow your body to jolt and bounce as the second foot comes off the floor. With regards to your hands, if you're still trying to balance and center the pelvis, then I'd recommend you keep your fingertips on your hip bones. Otherwise, back of the hands to the floor. Slightly more difficult would be to cross the arms over the chest. But remember, the shoulders stay down, the back of the neck stays long, the back stays in neutral or a little flatter if necessary, and the feet do not come anywhere near your bottom. Let's make this one the last one then. Now you can relax and stretch long, up the arms, down for the toes. Allow the hip flexors and those abdominals have a little bit of a stretch. And then that takes us nicely onto our side for the next move. So the next move is side kick. You need to be in a very straight line, and the easiest thing to use is the edge of your mat to make sure you're nice and straight. You need to rest your ear down on your shoulder. So make sure that arm is in a straight line with your body as well. If necessary, you can bend the elbow, rest on your forearm, or you can take the arm in front so it's out of the way and uncompromised.
but you must then have a pillow to put your head on. Okay, so choose where's most appropriate for you. Lengthening out, core muscles are switched on. Point the toes as you exhale, tighten and lengthen through those legs, and they will naturally float an inch or two off the floor. Try not to lift them, that's no good, it's very bad for the hips. You just want to lengthen them and stay in that straight line. Now stay where you are. I'm just going to move and show you what should not happen with this move. So here I am, hopefully in that nice straight line. What can happen is that the back suddenly goes, I know what to do with this one. I'm going to work really hard to keep you balanced. And so the back over tightens, the abdominals do nothing, the feet go behind and the top hip drops forwards. You do not want that to happen, obviously, because it's forcing the back to do what it should not be doing. So alternatively, that can happen. You can accidentally drop back onto the bottom. The brain is very clever, recognises you've got a wider area back there a little bit. So let's lean on that instead. Again, the core muscles are doing nothing. You're putting your back in a compromising position. You need to make sure you stay in a straight line. Top hand can go in front if you find yourself wobbly. If you find yourself centered and balanced, you can rest the hand on top of the thigh. Inner thighs working here, core muscles working here. Try and lengthen out through that back if you can. Okay, and melt down. Hug the legs into the chest. If your back suddenly goes, ah, that's a nice stretch, and your back felt tight with that one, there's a good chance that your back was doing more than it should have been. Okay, so before we go to the other side, we're going to do a move called the spine twist. So we're in a seated position for this one. You can have your legs pretty much where you want to, except for both legs over to one side. This means you're only sitting on one bum cheek. You must be sitting on two bum cheeks for this move. If you find it difficult to sit without a back support, sit on a cushion. Makes a huge difference. So you can have one leg in, one leg out, both legs crossed. The original traditional move is both legs straight. Don't feel obliged to do this just because I am though. So wriggling your bottom into the floor or your cushion, you're going to take finger and thumb together and place finger and thumb on the centre of your chest. Lengthen through the neck. It's only the upper body that's going to be moving. Keep the fingers in line with the nose. Breathe in to prepare. Core muscles are switched on. As you exhale, twist the upper body only round to one side. Now do not look over your shoulder. Keep fingers and nose in line. Breathe in to come back to centre and breathe out to go to the other side. You might find that you're not twisting very far at all. That's quite normal. You're just using your upper body like a lighthouse that can't quite go all the way around. Keep the shoulders down. Try not to draw the tension into the neck. Try and focus on the area around the rib cage that's doing all the work. Now you might find that those legs are trying to wriggle you round. Try and switch that instinct off if you can. And focus on the waist. Closing the eyes can help. Remember you're breathing in to return, breathing out to twist to the side. Breathe in to come back to the centre. Breathing out to twist. Are you still sitting up nice and tall? Core muscles still switched on. Nice and tall all the way through. Crown growing up towards the sky. Focusing on those waist muscles. Rotating the ribs from side to side. Okay, make this the last one and melt down. Give those shoulders, that was my elbow. Give those shoulders a wiggle. We're going to go to the other side with the side kick then. Laying yourself out nice and long. Same again. Possibly use your mat to keep you in that straight line. Bottom hand does not grip the floor. Remember those little adjustments and modifications if you need it for that bottom arm. You can use a pillow if you want. Core muscles are switched on. As you exhale, point the toes, lengthen the legs and allow them to float. Keep your bottom tucked under. Make that connection just underneath the belly button. Almost as if you're pulling your pubic bone forwards to lengthen through the back. If you find yourself balanced then you can rest that hand on the thigh. But if you're wobbly, if that means you go into the wrong position, just leave the fingertips on top of the floor, and in time you can perhaps come down to one finger, maybe floating the finger off the floor before you make that big leap of taking the hand onto the thigh. Keep breathing, eyes looking forwards, try and keep those toes pointed, core muscles in. Imagine yourself being lengthened from top to toe. And melt down, hug the legs into the chest for me. Okay, we're going to come up to seated now. I'm going to do a move called the roll up. You have a choice of keeping your legs bent or straight for this one. It's completely up to you. I prefer to use straight legs. You can use bent legs if you prefer. So this is called the roll up. We roll down, but the challenge is rolling back up again. So core muscles are switched on. Drop the elbows and shoulders down, palms slightly facing upwards. If they're turning down, your shoulders are hunched. So to open the chest and drop the shoulders. Breathe in to prepare. As you breathe out, collapse into your tailbone. Tuck your bottom right under and start to curl your way back. Go about halfway. Recognize that you're hollowing out the tummy muscles. Those feet shouldn't be floating. Use those tummy muscles to pull you forwards again. With this move, we're stretching out of the lower back as well as tightening the core. Breathe in, breathe out, sink and curl. Now it's up to you how far you go back. It just depends on how much you can control. But keep it slow and controlled. No collapsing. Tucking the bottom under, going back bit by bit. Breathing out to bring yourself forwards. Be careful, you will travel backwards a little bit with this move. Sinking back, keeping the chest open all the time. Avoid crunching through the shoulders to try and reach yourself forwards. Otherwise you'll stress through the front of the chest. Try and keep the chest nice and open. Elbows out to the side will help that. So for those who can go to the floor, that's fine, but can you get yourself back up? Smoothly. You can cheat a little and grab on those thighs. For instance, if your knees are bent, you can use your thighs to help you to lift up. But what you mustn't do is launch your way up. You're not teaching your body anything by launching up. You're just teaching your body to use momentum. You're not strengthening those core muscles. So avoid launching and bouncing your way up. Breathe and fight past that point that seems a little on the tricky side. Any beginners struggling with this one? You'd be glad to know this took me about 3 years to master drawing up without having to use some kind of assistance. So don't worry if you find this one tricky now and in 6 months' time. Okay, we're going to make that one the last one. And we're going to roll over onto our fronts now. We're going to do a move called the dart. So forehead to the floor, toes are flat, back of the hands on the floor, back of the neck is nice and long. We're simply going to use those lower back muscles to tighten and float the chest. Breathe in to prepare for me. Tummy muscles are switched on. As you breathe out, reach down the sides of the legs, square off through the shoulders, float the chest, but keep the chin tucked under. Breathe in, and gently melt the hands and the nose back to the floor. Breathe out, square off again through the shoulders by reaching down the legs. You'll feel them draw into the bottom of the back, and breathe in to melt down to the floor. And again, reach, square off, tighten into the lower back to float. And breathe in to come back down. It's just a very subtle move. And bring your attention to your legs. They should not be floating. Keep those toes flat and down on the floor. You might feel that your bottom and thigh muscles want to spring into action. If at all possible, focus everything around your waist. So
So you're using your waist and your lower back muscles to float, and the legs are simply anchoring you down into the ground. We're going to do one more. And melt down. Coming up onto all fours now. We'll just do a cat stretch to stretch out after that back extension. So tuck the bottom and chin under. Lengthen through the spine. Push the floor away with the hands. Nice long stretch down into the lower back. Okay, so from the dart we're going to go to the single leg stretch. You're on your back again. The knees are bent. So similar to that first move that we did, knees bent at a right angle. Pelvis is in neutral. We're going to use arms and legs to challenge the core muscles to keep the torso still. So when you do this one, don't let the back arch, don't let the shoulders up, don't let the chest lift up. You've got to keep everything contained by that corset of strength wrapping around your middle. So hands on the floor for the moment. Pelvis is in neutral. Core muscles are switched on. Breathe in to prepare. As you breathe out, gently float one foot into the air. We're going to work arms and legs together. So breathe in to prepare. As you breathe out, send the leg forwards, take the hands off the floor, and stretch and lengthen them in opposite directions, but tighten in the middle. Don't let that torso come apart. Keep the shoulders away from the ears. Breathe in to come back, and breathe out to stretch again. Notice we always stretch and lengthen on that breath out, because your core muscles are stronger when you breathe out. So breathe out to stretch, lengthen. Breathe in to return. The chest must not pop up. Keep the back of the ribs in contact with the floor all the time. If you're finding it difficult, the leg and the arms don't have to go quite so far back. So rein it in a little. If you feel that you can't control, keep that back in place. Breathe out to stretch, breathe in to lengthen. Now some of you earlier were able to have two legs in the air. This is the version for you guys. Those that had a single leg in the air earlier, you need to stay at the single leg version, please. So I might suggest that those that want to stay at the single leg version, actually, if you can swap over now and just lengthen and stretch and keep the rib cage down and core muscles switched on, I'm briefly going to talk through the two leg level for those that can. So remember, your back can flatten into the floor a little if necessary. You're going to send one leg there and back, other leg there and back, whilst the arms go each and every time. So breathe in to prepare. As you exhale, stretch one leg and two arms, the other leg hovers. Bring them all back. Other leg and two arms, the first leg now hovers, and come all the way back. So you're reaching and stretching in opposite directions at the same time. Chest stays down, back stays in neutral, or if you've flattened into the floor, of course, you can keep yourself flattened. Breathe out to lengthen. Breathe in to return. Keep those shoulders down, away from your ears. Back of the neck is long, chin tucked under. Let's make this one the last one. Last one for the single legs as well. And you can bring those legs into the chest and gently rock from side to side, just to massage the back into the floor. We're going to gently bring ourselves back up to seated. This is a short move, it's called the boat. We balance on our bottom. So, fingers just underneath the knees. Come to a point where you can just balance the toes on the floor. But notice how I'm not slouching back, pushing my lower back forwards, coming up onto those sitting bones. And then when you can, float the toes. Core muscles in, beware, don't sink back. Press the lower back forwards, keep the core muscles zipped up, and float. Shoulders down, back is nice and long. You need to put those feet down whenever you need to. This is quite tough on those hip flexors, the top of the thighs. Keep breathing, in through the nose, and out through the mouth. Core muscles in. And rest down.
Okay, into the bridge now. That's going to stretch those hip flexors out for you. Lie yourself back down. Definitely no pillow for this one though. And bring your feet back a little closer to your bottom. They're going to stay on the floor for this move. Legs are still parallel, hip distance apart of course. Hands on the floor by your hips. We'll start with the back in neutral, but we're going to peel up and roll down. I want you to think about a scorpion's tail as it curls up and curls down with this one. So core muscles are switched on. Let's breathe in to prepare. As you breathe out, squash your tummy down, squash the back into the floor, lift up the tailbone. Continue to lift up, pressing your feet down. Whatever you do, don't let the knees drop out to the side. Try not to squeeze your bottom too hard. Keep the bottom and thigh muscles relatively loose. Think of instead of pulling from above. And then we'll breathe in and roll the spine back down into the floor and return to neutral. So this one can be quite tricky for some. Automatically the glutes and the hamstrings spring into action and push the hips up. We want your core muscles to lift the spine from above. Keep the legs parallel and roll back down as you breathe in. You're trying to squash every single part of your back into the floor. Breathe out, tilt back, peel up. Nice and smooth and slow. Breathe in, right down. You can make this one a little bit more tricky if you want by crossing the arms over the chest, tilt back, peel up. You're likely to use your legs a little more because there's no arm support. And then breathe in and roll back down. One more time. Loosening out the spine, connecting spine with mind as well, and melting back down. Okay, we're going to come up to seated then for one last move. It's called the saw. And take those feet out wide, bottom on a cushion, of course, if you want to. So this one is going to stretch from one side of the shoulder all the way down to the opposite hip. It's also going to stretch down the back of the legs. Take the arms out like a ballerina. You're going to aim little finger towards opposite little toe. You're perhaps not going to reach, don't worry, but that's where you're aiming. So core muscles are switched on all the way through. No bouncing, we're just gently reaching. Breathe in at the top. Exhale, twist and reach. Little finger towards little toe. Keep your bum glued to the floor. Breathe in to lift up. Keep those shoulders down. And breathe out to twist and reach to the other side. Breathe in, lift up. Hopefully that feels really good. Across your back, around the shoulder. Maybe you can feel it down the back of the leg as well. Lifting up. Keep those shoulders down and reach. We'll do one more to each side. Remember to keep the core muscles switched on. Twist and reach as you breathe out. Okay, bring those legs in. Make sure they are comfy. Give those shoulders a bit of a roll backwards and forwards. Turning the head from side to side. Thank you very much everyone. I hope you enjoyed your beginner's Pilates class, and I hope to see you all again soon.